Hi, everybody. Are you manifesting your reality as you go along, or are others having more control over the reality you are experiencing? Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Today, I want to talk about a paper I wrote. This has to do with, are we creating our reality, or do others have more influence over what our reality is, what we experience moment to moment than we do? So I'm going to just kind of go through a paper that I wrote and put that out there for you to think about. Do we have any control over the experience we're having, and how many others seem to have more control over our reality than we do? In my other books and videos, I've talked about the idea that our experiences and realities were created at the moment source was created by nothing, so that nothing could experience itself with the illusions of feelings and emotions, and believing, accepting that reality was real. So in my last video about I mentioned that at some point AI would create a reality simulation to do the same thing for itself. In other words, create enough simulations and go deep enough into those simulations that it would believe it was human or whatever it wanted to be, and that the reality it was in was real as well. In other words, simulation theory. We are experiencing our realities based on the role we are here to play. That role includes all the perceived limitations we have mentally, emotionally, and physically. Every possibility and potentiality we could experience in our role already exists as a vibration waiting to be translated and experienced, meaning there are an almost unlimited number of aspects of us existing as slightly different versions of us, frequencies. In other words, experiencing realities as other possibilities. They're not other universes, it's other reality lines. That's why I've said when we die, we may just shift to another aspect of us and keep going, most of the time not knowing we died and shifted. I've mentioned some of those experiences I've had in my other videos over this last 10 months or so. Some believe that we are the only ones existing in our universe or reality, which is called solipsism, and that everyone else is a manifestation designed to show us how we are doing. In other words, a reflection, as it were, of our internal state of being. In essence, everyone else is a sim of sorts being manifested for a particular reason within our reality, and that means nothing exists outside of the mind. This thought process would indicate that they believe they in their mind are manifesting their reality as they go along with the decisions and choices they are making. Some think it's just their subconscious going a little bit crazy. Those decisions would determine who appears in the reality and which experience they end up having. This would include the idea of the matrix default programs they choose to accept to make their experience seem more real. In other words, it'd be almost a random experience for them, for their consciousness, because they wouldn't be aware of what was really going on. Some feel that others in our reality are real and that we are co-creating our realities together. We each have our own universe and reality. Sometimes we have separate experiences and other times we are working together. It could mean we plan those experiences together ahead of time or manifest them as we make decisions at our higher self level. This can also include what we call a soulmate or soul family journey, where we come back together as a group to play different roles for and to help each other. In this type of reality, there would again be sims or background players and the matrix default programs that have been accepted. So this line of thinking can include the in-between life world, where it is thought that we go and plan out our next life and make contacts with others so we and they can play certain roles for each other. I've never understood why we as spirit energy beings have to make contracts with each other. At that level, we would already know what each other wants and would help or we wouldn't. Contracts seem to be a human concept thrown in to make people think they must follow through or get punished if they don't. I mean, how would you punish a spirit energy anyway? Make it come back to earth as a human? That goes back to the sin and karma ideas accepted by religion and most people in this world. It's a worldly program, not a spiritual one. And that goes back to the idea that, like I said, sin and karma, where everyone is supposedly held accountable for all this stuff. Well, if you planned it out ahead of time or it's an experience set up by the creator, then how could you be accountable for it? Anyway, getting back to the paper. If this idea is true, then we have no free will while in human form, and we can't trust our spirit buddies to do what they say they would do unless they're somehow held liable under a contract. Remember, it's not the human that decides to leave, it's the spirit. The body never goes anywheres. The following information is what I received relating to how our reality is influenced. It's a line of thought that I've never had before, and this happened before when Irene and I were talking a few weeks ago, but because of what happened, I kind of got delayed on finishing up this paper. Think back on your life and the number of people you've come into contact with and how many events that had to happen to you during a typical day that determine how your reality plays out from that moment forward. In other words, from whatever happens, your reality shifts because of what just happened. Do you have any control over that or not? Do you realize that every decision your parents, partners, kids, relatives, friends, bosses, coworkers, people you see, even without interacting with daily, influence the reality you are experiencing right now? Think about the traffic whenever you leave the house. Every one of those vehicles, drivers, causes you to make a choice as to how you are driving, what lane you get in, how fast or slow you get to go, and the time it will take you to get where you are going. There are traffic lights, stop signs, rules of the road, and policemen to enforce those laws and rules. In other words, everything that's happening is essentially guiding you or determining what's going to happen to you. So do you really think it's your choice? We have lines of people in stores that determine how long we are there. The number and type of products on the store shelves that day determine what we buy or what we eat. We accept state and federal laws that influence our behavior, policies and procedures at work that you're supposed to follow every day. In other words, they are controlling your daily reality. Yes, you think you have a choice in it, but the reality is your day is a lot more controlled by others than what you think. And we have taxes, bills, income limitations, insurance, home and car repairs, and everything else that can come up during a day. Each of these things requires you to act or do something in a certain way, thus shifting the reality you are in. Every decision someone else makes can cause you to make a change in your reality line based on what they said or did. Every decision your parents made and everything they did from the time you were conceived affected the reality you are experienced and are experiencing, especially as a child. Think about how your reality would be different today if your parents had changed even one of their decisions while you were growing up. And were you manifesting the reality as you were growing up, or were they? Did you have any real influence over the choices they made beyond just being a person they had to think about in those decisions? Were they destined to make those choices so you would end up where you are today? Something to think about and ask yourself. Even as an adult, they and your family influences your daily reality. How you grew up and the beliefs you were given still affect the choices you make today and the reality you are in. Everything your brother, sister, and friends did as you grew up together affected your reality. Had they made different choices, even one, your reality would be completely different to what you have now. Had you chosen to react differently than you did to what they did or said, would again have caused you to be in a different reality. Your friends, teachers, and schoolmates influence the reality every day as well, just as much by the choices they made and the things they did involving you. Think about all the interactions you have with different people in different places over the course of your life. Had any of those interactions gone differently, or either of you had made a different decision, your reality would again be different today. Were you the one choosing those decisions, or were they making those choices for you, essentially guiding you, pushing you to do certain things, to make certain choices? How much control did they have? I could go on and on about the number of factors and people in your daily life that determine which reality you shift to, but I think you get the idea of what I'm talking about. What it comes down to is every decision anyone has ever had let's try it again. What it comes down to is every decision anyone you have ever had contact with, and even those you have never met but who created the rules you need to follow daily from your moment of birth, have determined the reality you are experiencing. Some will say those people or Sims are just doing what you wanted them to do so you could shift to the reality you needed to be in to have a certain experience. That is the idea that we planned out our life before we came here and got others to help us achieve. Just think about that for a moment. Think about the idea that if that's the case, then everyone else is causing all the problems in your life. The driver on the road that slows you down so you're late, and every other issue in your life that doesn't go as you would have wanted it to if you were making the choice, was caused by someone else. That would mean you have zero conscious control over the reality you're in. Your realities and the decisions you have to make in that reality are determined by the decisions everyone else has made. That means you're just a victim in your reality. If you believe you, your mind, are all that exists, and everything else reflects your state of mind, then why would you create so many problems for yourself if you truly have the ability to control your reality simply by controlling your mind? That means you are the one doing everything to yourself and causing all of your own problems by not controlling your mind. Others will say they are controlling and manifesting their reality because they wanted something and then it showed up, or they thought about someone and then that person called or met them. The reality is you had the thought about what you wanted or about the other person because that was already going to happen. The truth is you live in the past. You experience your reality after it has already happened. You can't experience it before it happens in the physical reality unless it already exists. If you look at it from a medical point of view, science, there's a delay between the time your eyes see something and that image is translated by your brain into something you can make sense of. The same is true for all of your other senses. By the time you think you are seeing what you saw or feeling what you felt, that moment has already passed. In my books, I talk about 2 different studies that show that the area of the brain that would react to whatever image the person was being shown had started reacting up to 13 seconds before the next picture was shown. In other words, their subconscious, unconscious mind was responding to what was coming next before their conscious mind had any awareness. This indicates the brain or some part of us already knows what is coming. That's why I say you aren't thinking about the person and then they show up. They are already showing up and you were simply seeing what was coming. So what it comes down to is this question, and something I want you to think about instead of giving you the final answers to it. Are we creating our reality by our choices, or are our decisions being made based on what everyone else around us has decided to do? Just something to think about. Enjoy the day.